this is our very exciting Christmas episode, and we are delighted that Chris Stockton has agreed to be Christmas Chris for From the Horsebox this month. He has all the right ingredients for an entertaining conversation: lorries, marquee parties, horses, in racing and hunting, and Formula Ford car racing, which we're looking forward to learning all about. So make sure your seatbelts are on securely.
Yes, we'll be dashing through the snow. But first, let's get into the Christmas spirit. Actually, we've chosen a cocktail over mistletoe and wine. These picantes certainly look the part.
Well, a lover of all things fast-paced, Chris, be it horses, racing cars, lorries, and life in general, we thought we might start with the horses. I mean, from a small boy, have you always been fearless? Have nerves never played a part?
It's always hard to talk about yourself, isn't it? Yeah, I've never worried about anything that I do.
You've always
wake
led.
up. I don't lose sleep at night. If it was field master, it stressed a lot of people out. It just didn't. I did put a lot of effort in, so that gives you the confidence. So maybe it's based on probably quite strong inner confidence, really.
It's because you've raced, you're 67 winners, you've been a Master of Hounds in Cheshire and ridden in hunter chases, and I know you put a lot of work into it. What you enjoyed about the camaraderie of leading all those people?
Yeah, I first got asked to field master for the Wednesday. Then Peter Greenall, Lord Daresbury, now was struggling. He was busy with work and they needed a bit more help. So I got asked to do that, which was brilliant. It really sort of got me going. I always wanted to do it, and I was always out by myself a lot. So it sort of suited everybody really for me to start doing it. And I'd learned a lot really from the likes of John Fernell, John Brayton a lot as well, and certainly my father-in-law, Jonathan Clark. Yeah. So I've spent most of my life field mastering for the Cheshire. A lot of the roots of it and the start of it was with the Wednesday. And likewise with the pony clubs, I was a member of both from 5 years old with the Wednesday, and then from 13 years old with the Cheshire, and then back again with the Wednesday afterwards. So it's been very much both packs, really, although latterly very much the Cheshire.
How much time do you spend turning around looking behind you to see what's happening?
Quite a bit. I used to take a lot. I really, really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. I desperately tried for other people to enjoy it. And that was half of the fun, is looking back and seeing who was coming, who could come. And you talk about confidence, having the confidence to actually stop or slow right up to try and get people to sort of come with you. Yes, I would go and have a good poke at some decent places, but I really tried to. You can't do it by yourself. The whole point is it's field mastering, and you need at least half a dozen to come at something, because otherwise you are by yourself. But the fun of it was in turning around a lot of it and having a bloody good laugh and a giggle, or giving somebody some stick, sometimes catching a horse as it went past me. It's just, I really enjoyed it.
And also taking people over things that they mightn't have attempted in the first place must be very rewarding.
It took a lot with the Cheshire to begin with. I don't really know why, because it had some really good field masters. Your brother-in-law, Randall, for one, David Woolley, Robin Williams. So I took over in that era from those that had just retired. And it was really difficult to begin with. It was difficult to get them to come. Really difficult.
But you do give off this huge engine yourself. Your own personality has got this huge engine. And I think people really still remember and loved it all.
From 3 months of joining the mastership in the opening meet, by, say 3 months, January time, it really did start to get going, really. The hunting was very, very strong. The hounds at that time were in good order. Guy the huntsman was at the top of his game. Everything was sort of fitting into place. The hunt horses that we inherited, it was a hell of a good team of horses that Robin had bought. Fee was in the mastership prior to that as well, and she'd been part of the horse buying. So it was a really good foundation to, you often join hunts when they're always often cyclical, where with ups and downs. You often join hunts, or new masters will often join hunts in the bottom of it, troubled times. But I was very lucky that I joined hunts at the top of its game, really.
Yeah, and as you said, you were a great team, all you masters.
It was a really good team. We got on famously well. When we all sort of joined, I got invited at the time. Who was in it? Robert Walker, Rich Thomas and Andrew Jones, and they asked me to be the fourth one. And we all very much had a pact that whether we agreed with each other or not, that we'd stick up for each other. And we saw it through. I did 9 years. There's not a day that I can think that I was out that I didn't thoroughly enjoy, and a lot of other people too.
It's a whole miracle of a mesh of everybody working together, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and that includes the Hunt supporters. I mean, the Hunt supporters were so strong, and they're very strong with the Wednesday, as is the committee. So both packs. It's really interesting, really, because I was a Wednesday person, really, that sort of moved back over to Hunt with the Cheshire. And both packs are of an equal, different type of hound at the time, although Andrew Jones and myself really were pretty instrumental in changing to a more Old English hound. And I know that was politically difficult for the Cheshire, but the two have got closer together with our hounds than ever before, probably.
We're all very lucky.
And rumour has it you're making a bit of a comeback.
I've said that for 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I've had horses. I've got 3 horses at the moment, but I still haven't ridden. It's just work. And it's a really bad excuse because life's too short, and I really do need to sort my life out work-wise and start to ride again because I'm fleeted up, teamed up, have all the enthusiasm in the world. Every party I go to, I always talk about wanting to hunt again, and I haven't done it yet. But I'm keen. The boys, two lads that we've got, hunt with their grandfather, Sir Jonathan, and I'm missing out. So I need to, as I said.
You'll get a huge welcome, Chris, when they all see you coming back.
Yes, so it hasn't always been fast horses, also fast cars. Tell us about your racing and how that all started.
Yeah, the racing came about. I got to 50 winners with points and said that I'd finish at 50 because I've always, I'm not hugely big. I've always struggled in weight. I mean, the idea of me point to point in the house is laughable. I was in the 11 stones then and had to ride at 11.2 at my lightest. It was just murder. It was just murder to get down to that weight.
Murder for you, murder for everybody else.
And everybody else. In the end, it just got insufferable to live like that, to live in salt baths and be in saunas, run every day, and being miserable. It just made me miserable, so I had to stop.
But you had some third over the national fences and some big races, and with a lot riding on some of those races.
I'm not a gambler. I don't bet. If we go to national, I'll have a bet. If we go horse racing, I'll have a bet. But I'm really not. I don't pick up the paper and read horse racing. Even though my brother-in-law trains, Warren Greytrace probably has 90 horses in Lambourne. So if anybody's got a bit of inside info, it's us as a family. But I don't gamble. But some people do, obviously, and some people really gamble heavy. And I'll never forget Alan Millard, who's had a building business in Ellesmere, had a horse with Isabel Dady called Busted Spring. And I'd ridden this horse in the first hunter chase at Bangor on probably 2nd, 3rd of February. It finished 4th, but 4th a long way back. I mean, fence behind. But it had won a novice chase the year before. Trainer said it would come on. Isabel said this horse will come on. They entered him for the Ludlow Gold Cup, which is a big hunter chase, one of the big prizes really. Marcus Armitage was riding the favourite called King Neon, that was odds on, had won 5 or 6 hunter chases, and Alan legged me up in the paddock and said, everything's riding on this. I've got £1,000 on it, 50 to 1. I looked at it when I got on, and this is a long time ago. £50,000 back then, I would have only been 21, 22, which is 30 years ago.
And he told you that as he was legging you on?
He told me, he said, this has got to win. This chap has got to win. And
no pressure.
I was always trying anyway. I rode to win. So it wasn't a case where I could try much harder, I didn't think. But I actually did win by a short head. And literally just led on the line. For my efforts, I had a 14-day ban from the stewards, which was very, very fair. It was, again, 30 years ago.
And what did he say to you when you won the race? Was he
was crying. He was absolutely crying. And I went out with them in Ellesmere that night, and I stayed with them that night, and we went back for lunch in Ellesmere, and the night after. There were two solid nights of partying. which is fantastic. Just fantastic. Again, yes, it was about the money, but the pleasure that they get, and the shock to beat Marcus, who was, Marcus went on only a couple of years later to win the National. He was a top amateur. So I loved the racing, but you asked about the car racing, and the car racing followed on because of the weight, because I couldn't diet anymore. I just couldn't diet.
And tell us what sort of cars they are.
I've raced all sorts of cars. So Formula Fords are mini Formula One cars. So the likes of Jenson Button, for instance, won the Formula Ford World Championship. The people generally start in karting as go-karting, professional karting, and then move up to Formula Ford, and then move up to Formula 3, and then the best ones at Formula 3 were chosen out usually to get drives or be second drivers or trainee drivers for Formula 1 teams. That's the sort of hierarchy of how it progresses. So I started in Formula Ford, just bought a Formula Ford car, retired from point to point, to train myself. I was naturally quite quick. I had umpteen car crashes when I was a youngster locally, just because I was too fast and too furious. Took to the racetrack properly and did quite well.
So is it the sort of similar technique, like in horse racing, you look for a gap and you get yourself through?
Yeah, it really...
Similar.
It's the buzz that you get from car racing is unbelievable. You've got fixed obstacles in the way, obviously barriers, crash barriers, you're racing on a fixed track, and you've got competitors that are just all over the place trying to find the right bit of track. Very similar to racing, very, very similar to the buzz that you get from horse racing.
And you were pretty quick around some of those tracks.
From the start, within 2 years, I'd won the Formula Ford World Championship, which the year before Jenson Button won. He got his Williams drive from Frank Williams. Literally the night he won the Formula Ford World Championship.
So did they come and chat to you, these
No,
Williams?
No, the Formula guys didn't, because I was 10 years older than Jenson. So I was in my late 20s then. Jenson was 18, so that's what they want. They want young guys. And to be good at that time in your life as an 18-year-old, you've pretty much got to be family funded. It is seriously expensive.
And are the parties good and the whole lifestyle on the circuit?
Unbelievable. It was unbelievable. I've raced in America, I've raced in Florida, I've raced in Italy at Monza, Paul Ricard in France. I did Le Mans, completed in 2004, I drove for TVR.
But you said that you and Polly arrived in the horse box.
That was the Formula Ford World Final when I was self-taught and self-run, really. I managed to get some guys together for that worked so I was sponsored by Myerscough College, who have a motorsport department. And the deal was basically they could only do the actual race days, obviously they're at college all week. For whatever reason, I don't know why we ended up with the transport. We had to work out how to get this car down to Brands Hatch and managed to build and fudge and bodge some huge planks that got it into a great big horse box that Polly had, big 5-horse thing. We went down there and stayed in the Brands Hatch. It's the Thistle, it's called. And you talk about parties in there. Again, you go back 30 years. I mean, you just, there's no way that I or any other would pass a drinks test. We'd pass the drugs test, but definitely not a drinks test, because it was literally, it was three in the morning that you went to bed when you were in the Brands Hatch Thistle, or any of the big hotels. I mean, you go back even further into the days of James hunting. It hadn't changed that much. It really hadn't changed. It has now.
Spray a lot
changed.
of champagne on the podium, did you, when you celebrations?
Yes. Yeah, I look back, because of this, I look back at some of the videos and some of the photographs, and it is quite funny to see when you're 20, 30 years younger, and also what you got up to.
You said you obviously trained yourself really with the driving, and you've got a civil engineering degree from Leeds. Did this sort of help?
The driving, I say I trained myself. The cars have telemetry, which is basically an onboard computer that measures absolutely everything from how hard and how fast you pick up the throttle, to your steering input left and right, to the braking, to the G left and right. It measures everything, and it literally puts it out on a PC like that in traces. And up against your other teammates, you can overlay your traces, and you can see that you need to brake 6 metres deeper into turn 3, or you're losing ground coming out of turn 5, and you can see it. It's very, very statistical. And my brain is quite mathematical and quite statistical.
Sounds a bit technical for us, Claire. We might give it a miss.
My written text wouldn't be as good as either of yours, though.
So you didn't have any training on how to cope with a crash situation?
No. And you learn the hard way. I showed you when we spoke the other day, I've broken my thumbs that many times. Because the one thing you should do when you go into an impact is take your feet off the pedals. Because your feet on the pedals breaks your back if you go in head on. And your hands on the steering wheel, at the very least, break your thumbs. It is so unnatural to teach yourself to loose go of everything and pull your feet back and just sit there in the brace, literally in the brace position. That's really difficult.
So more injuries from the car racing than horses?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't even come onto the same page.
So, Chris, Marquise began the business career. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. I was working for French Kia as a graduate trainee in London. Worked there for a couple of years, went through all sorts of planning, estimating, buying departments, site, and it was quite a heavy recession early on in the 90s, and I decided to buy some marquees and move back up to Cheshire and set it up.
So do you make use of a lot of your contacts and people you knew in racing, and did both sides of your life come together, the marquees, the racing?
They always do, don't they?
Yeah.
Your contacts through your life, invariably. If they want a marquee, you're high up on the list if they know that's what you do. People like working with people they A, like, and B, know. So, yes, hugely helped. The racing world especially, within probably 2 or 3 years, we covered probably the vast majority of the point-to-points. I don't know they're only seasonal, but that then led into everybody knowing that we did it or I did it. And the weddings just sort of followed through, and the parties followed through from that. So yes, contacts, and that's how it works, isn't it?
It was a huge party time, wasn't it?
Yes,
huge
thing to.
Yeah. So how did that take you to China and Ningbo?
So when 2000 I got married to Paul, we'd been together for probably 3 years prior to that. I had always promised myself, not because I was under any pressure from Paul, but I'd always promised myself, as with the racing not being great for your social life, great at the weekends for your social life, but not being great because of the dieting I had to do. Marquees were very, very similar because it was always a weekend sort of, and because I owned it and because I dealt with so many people that I knew, I was always the one that headed it up. So if there's any problems or just literally being around to supervise marquees being taken down, it was always weekends, very obviously by the sheer nature of it, everything's at the weekend. And so I promised myself that I would sell it. And in that period when I made my mind up sort of 6 months before we got married, Matt Bell contacted me. I knew that he was working for a London company. I can't think of his field. I think it was Field and Lawn. But he, as with me, wanted to move back to this area, and he was looking to buy a marquee business. So we sat down and hatched out a bit of it had to be X, Y, and Z, and we did a deal. And it really suited me and it suited Matt. And the last marquee that we owned and put up came down from Haydock races, and then went as part of the sort of our own wedding marquee. And as that was taken down, it literally, that was it. It was handed over lock, stock and barrel to Matt. And I kept the one bit that I wanted to keep the furniture hire business, but Matt wanted to buy the whole shaboodle, which is fine. He was in the driving seat over that, so that he did. But because I'd been hiring so much furniture, I'd managed to source the furniture myself. So I went out to Bulgaria first to get a supplier, and then moved over to China and started using China. So I'd got the supply of all this sort of hospitality and corporate furniture.
So what was that like, going to, let's say, China, when you can't speak the language and meeting all these different people and they see a tall blonde coming?
It's ever so easy now.
What was that like?
That would have been in, I suppose, in 2000, 20 odd years ago. No internet, really difficult to source anywhere, really difficult to travel in China. I mean, the difference now, you go there and everywhere there are 5-lane highways, even in the most remote areas, whereas when I was going there then, it was just, there were craters, the potholes the size of cars on the roads. It was horrendously bad. The difference now, there's bullet trains everywhere, 5-lane motorways everywhere. But 25 years ago, it was tricky. It was really
communication, tricky. Obviously.
Yeah, really. I can hardly tell you how difficult it was.
Do you know anything in Chinese?
Well, I don't speak a word of Mandarin, and most of the places that I went, as soon as you left Beijing or Shanghai, they don't speak one single word of English. I know it's obvious, but actually going out there with a backpack on your back and going to try and find your way around was incredibly difficult. Really, really, really difficult. I can't imagine how I did it, really.
That. No, I don't know how you did
but it
that.
worked. I managed to get, over a period of time, 14 factories, of which we still use 7 now.
So Ningbo was the place in China where you did
Yeah,
the first
Ningbo is a
deal.
very, very big city, huge city, size of London. It's just south of Shanghai, really. It sits across the estuary from Shanghai. And I had a good friend at the time who I rode pointers for, who owns Low Cross Antiques, still owns Low Cross Antiques in Whitchurch. And he, I don't know how he did it, but he had a factory that he'd set up in Ningbo. So I literally used some of his contacts and based myself really in and around Ningbo for the first few trips. And he was a big help. Mark Vaughan, his name was. So yeah, again, the racing contacts through riding and through riding some winners for him, sort of opened up business opportunities in China of all random places.
And you realise that you can buy certain merchandise there
I realised
on a huge level, and then hopefully... And
price. The price, I mean, it's ever so easy to see now because half of the Tesco and most of your stores, more than half, have got Chinese-made goods in them. But
you were ahead of the game.
Yeah, I probably was ahead of the game. Probably missed a big opportunity, really, even though we've done okay. It just the opportunity was colossal. Yeah.
So chairs and tables, obviously huge demand for those. Is that still the case?
It is today. The hospitality sector, as you know, through COVID was just collapsed. It was hit so hard with places being shut. That impacted on the furniture business. So we pretty much mothballed it. We kept it open, but it went down to a couple of employees. Restarted that furniture business again in earnest January, and then March, April, May and June were fantastic. They were absolutely unbelievable, and it was back to its best really. And then July and August it started to taper off, and this month you'd have to say it's absolutely terrible again. But it's again we're intrinsically linked to hotels, the hospitality sector, pubs, outdoors, scout events,
So you've supplied furniture to some quite interesting places, like the House of Monaco, and
yes.
How did that happen?
It's all through the internet. We are internet based. So some of our clients are the Hilton Group that need banqueting tables, right the way down to somebody that will buy a car boot table on the internet that's delivered by TNT the next day.
That will be me. Sorry. You are talking to the number one world's car booty.
So lorries, we do like lorries. You own a fleet of lorries.
Yeah, so the furniture business got that big that we became one of Pallet Line's biggest customers in the Northwest, in this area, really, with lorry loads of furniture.
So Kate and I would be able to get a job lorry driving, do you think?
No, because we haven't got the right licence. And I've got my arm in a sling.
If we consider ourselves lorry drivers, I quite like being a trucker.
Yeah, I'd love the idea of driving.
Have you
lorry,
ever driven these lorries?
I have, but I just don't. I don't now. But yeah, I was sort of reserve driver at nights. Really, if somebody called in sick, so we would have night trunkers going back into Pallet Line and out of Pallet Line, 5 or 6 of them a night, down to Birmingham, and. Yeah, I would be reserve driver if somebody either was ill or didn't call in. But I mean, really reserved. But it's not much fun working the day, getting a few hours sleep, and then driving in. You've got to be careful, really. But yeah, I was the real super sub only.
This is not only furniture, too. You're getting into smaller stuff for the hospitality.
Yeah, well, because of at the moment, because of it's just obvious that the hospitality sector's struggled for 3 years, 2.5 years now, and it's struggling again. So we're broadening into. I've tried to buy quite a big gifting business, but being unsuccessful. It's still not been. So we cannot agree on price. So I've set up or in the process of setting up something not dissimilar, but. Yeah, so we're trying to I'm doing 2 things. We are broadening our range into commodity items that are everyday items, like I've just ordered 120,000 pairs of gloves, for construction use, multiple uses. And also we're going into gifting for mugs and kitchenware, oven gloves, but again, in quite a big way.
So this will all be sold over the internet?
These products specifically will be stored by Amazon, fulfilled by Amazon, sent out by Prime. But yeah, it's just big. You wouldn't believe the numbers that you've got to buy to get the price. The mugs, minimum order to get the price we want is 33,000 mugs. So literally, it's a hot topic today, as Claire will know.
I was trying
because I've been doing
best.
some random,
Which were the top pattern that you chose in the end?
Dogs and cats, which I suppose is fairly obvious that most people.
Well,
have
I
got
thought if you wanted to
cats,
sell 33,000, it'd have to be.
And that's just the first order. Following
Dogs
that,
and cats.
6 weeks after that, there will be the second container. So you have to have a rolling program. So, the power of Amazon, on one hand, is difficult for some companies because they've taken over.
It is amazing, especially living in rural areas like we do.
I'm very much a believer that if you can't beat them, join them. And we will have a lot of products in Amazon soon. We've got quite a bit anyway, but feels like joining the devil. But there we go. That's what we've done.
So obviously, your family all getting mugs for Christmas, all 32,000 of them. Good luck, Polly and the boys. Tell us about your Christmas. Is it steeped in tradition, or is it a sort of different Christmas every year?
When I was younger, i.e. in my 20s, hunting just was everything. It was just everything. So when I worked in London, I would be back on the train on Friday night for hunting. So hunting drove everything really. And then sort of in the late 90s and early 2000s, as soon as I met Paul and we were together, Christmas Eve would always be at the Clarks. They always had a dinner party for many friends that was sort of, it's just a religion with them, really. They always had at Somerset House meet, Christmas Eve meet. So it's always revolved around hunting, really. And from even before those days, Christmas Day, I would get on a horse at home, be 2 or 3 horses down, and get on 1 or 2. Be my idea of spending Christmas Day out and about, ranging around for an hour and a half, jumping as many things as I could find on Mrs. Lockhart's and you name it places, the Huxleys. Nobody was going to tell you off at Christmas. Nobody. That was my that was my plan.
Too, so.
And exactly, there was nobody there to do them.
Yeah. Well, it's a big family Christmas. I forgot to ask you actually earlier on if you had any siblings.
Yes, a brother, Gareth.
Do you?
And he rode until he was 14. He was really good. But with the Wednesday...
is he younger or older?
He's 3 years younger, yeah. With the Wednesday, we were both out and I jumped a tiger trap. He came to jump the tiger trap. For whatever reason, Rio, his pony, swerved and it knocked him absolutely clean out on a tree. And he wouldn't even get back on to go home on that pony that day. He stopped. And he was really keen. It was really bizarre.
Family of decision makers.
Maybe.
Right. Shall we go on to the quickfire questions, Kate?
Yeah, you start.
Right. These turn to the Christmas theme again. Who were you in the school nativity? Did you have a starring role?
Baby Jesus, of course.
In which country is KFC a popular Christmas meal?
Well, I can tell you KFC for me is the only place I will eat now in China. So it's got to be China, hasn't it?
Well, actually Japan, but
close.
Well,
that's
a
jolly good answer.
They might disagree on that one.
Well, I don't know if you know the answer to this one. What would you stick into an onion when following a traditional bread sauce recipe?
Clove.
Absolutely.
Good boy. Okay, mine's more difficult. Name Santa's 8 reindeer.
Oh, blimey. Are there 8?
Yep, there are. Well, it's slightly in dispute, but...
Well, Christmas cards I see. I
you
can
can't
see one.
start with
Rudolph.
No, Rudolph is not one, actually.
No! It's got to be.
No, he's not considered.
He doesn't know them, Kate. He doesn't know
Okay,
them.
right. There's Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner and Blitzen, as most people know. So just to continue, because you obviously got that wrong, how would you sex those 8?
All girls.
And how do you know they're girls?
I'm guessing.
Yes, they are girls, of course.
She's trying to catch you out.
The reindeer shed their antlers in the winter, and obviously all Father Christmas's reindeer have antlers, so they are girls. And also, obviously, because it's the sort of mating season and everything, they wouldn't be very strong to pull up. They're all not looking good.
Great
so
observation,
that's why,
Kate.
as everybody knows, they're
Love it.
girls.
Charades or Monopoly?
Monopoly. I like the money element of it.
And just to finish, in which ocean would you find Christmas Island?
Pacific?
Well, not far off. It's the Indian.
Indian. I was going to say it's one of those. Okay.
Yeah.
You're being inspirational, Chris, but have you got a joke or a motto to finish with?
Oh, I've got a motto. Yeah.
Go on then.
Try and keep trying and try harder. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very good.
We
Not
do
very
that.
good on jokes. You'd have to ask Jake, my eldest son. He's full of them. He's completely different to me.
Thank you very much, Chris. I think I could have helped Chris out there with his motto, as I think he might recognise this phrase, only steady folks go round with no war wounds. And I'm looking at my co-host here in a sling.
Thank you, Claire. And thank you, Chris, for a lot of fun recording this episode, and congratulations for such a success story in all areas of your life. We hope you and all our listeners have a very happy Christmas, and we look forward to our New Year's episode when it could be you in the driving seat.